Something just happened to 3I Atlas that has every astronomer who's been tracking this object completely baffled. I'm talking about a sudden, dramatic change that occurred within hours. A change so rapid and so unexpected that it violates everything we thought we understood about how objects behave in space. And NASA's official response? They can't explain it. Let me tell you exactly what changed and why this has the entire astronomical community in shock. 48 hours ago, 3I Atlas was behaving consistently. We had established patterns, rotation period of 2.4 hours, surface brightness variations matching that rotation, spectroscopic signatures showing specific emission and absorption lines, trajectory following predictable path with small acceleration we'd been monitoring. Everything was documented, measured, tracked. Then, suddenly, everything changed. The first indication came from amateur astronomers. Multiple observers in different countries reported that 3I Atlas appeared brighter than expected. Not slightly brighter, dramatically brighter. Within 6 hours, the object's apparent magnitude increased by 1.8 magnitudes. That's almost a 6-fold brightness increase in less than a quarter of a day. That doesn't happen. Comets can brighten from outgassing, but that takes days to weeks, not hours. Professional observatories confirmed it immediately. The Hubble Space Telescope had observation time scheduled and captured the change in real time. The images are stunning and disturbing. The object looks completely different. Where we saw relatively uniform surface with some bright spots, now we see intense emission from one hemisphere. Where we saw subtle coma activity, now we see dramatic plumes. The object transformed visually within hours. But the brightness change is just the beginning. The rotation period changed. It was 2.4 hours. Now it's 3.1 hours. The object is rotating slower. In space, rotation doesn't just change spontaneously. Angular momentum is conserved. To change rotation, you need torque, forces acting at distance from rotation axis. What applied that torque? Natural outgassing produces torque, but calculations show the gas production we're observing isn't sufficient to explain the magnitude of rotational change in such short time. The spectroscopic signature also changed dramatically. Remember that mysterious 637 nanometer emission line that appeared during the perihelion explosion, then vanished? It's back, and it's stronger than before. Multiple spectroscopic observations from different facilities all show the same thing. Bright emission at 637 nanometers that shouldn't exist. We still don't know what produces it. But it's there, it's real, and it just reappeared after being absent for weeks. Additionally, new emission features appeared in the infrared. Strong emission bands between 2.5 and 3.5 microns that weren't there before. These wavelengths typically indicate organic compounds or complex carbon chemistry. Either the surface composition changed, or subsurface materials are now exposed, or something is actively producing these compounds. All explanations are extraordinary. The thermal emission pattern changed too. Infrared observations show the object is now warmer overall, but the temperature distribution is different. Before the change, we saw relatively uniform temperature with expected variation between illuminated and shadowed regions. Now we see hotspots, localized regions, significantly warmer than surroundings. The hottest spot is approximately 50 Kelvin warmer than the average surface temperature. That's not solar heating. That's internal heat or concentrated energy release. The debris field from the perihelion explosion is behaving strangely too. Several fragments that were on predictable trajectories have deviated, not dramatically, but measurably. Small velocity changes tens of meters per second, but applied suddenly around the same time the main object changed. It's like Whatever affected the primary object also affected some fragments. That's deeply unusual. Fragments should be independent once separated, unless there's some connection we don't understand. Dr. Michio Kaku reviewed all the observational data yesterday. I spoke with him directly about his assessment. He was frank. In 40 years of physics, I've never seen an astronomical object change this rapidly without obvious cause. Natural processes have timescales. Ice sublimates gradually as solar heating increases. Rotation changes develop over days or weeks from torques. Spectroscopic features evolve as composition changes. But everything changed simultaneously within hours. That's not how nature typically works. He continued, the most troubling aspect is the coherence. Multiple independent characteristics all changed at nearly the same time. Brightness, rotation, spectrum, thermal emission, even the debris field. That suggests a single cause affecting all these properties. What natural process does that? I can think of several artificial mechanisms that would produce exactly this pattern. But proposing artificial explanation without definitive proof remains scientifically controversial. NASA's official statement acknowledged the changes, but offered no explanation. They said observations are ongoing, data is being analyzed, and preliminary findings will be shared when available. That's unusual. Normally, when something dramatic happens with a tracked object, NASA has working hypotheses they share even while emphasizing uncertainty. This time, nothing. Just acknowledgement that changes occurred and they're investigating. That silence is telling. Internal sources at NASA, and I have several, who've been willing to talk off the record, describe confusion and intense debate. Different teams are proposing wildly different explanations, none of which fully account for all observations. Some argue for catastrophic structural failure, exposing fresh interior materials. Others propose impact by unseen small body. Some suggest exotic outgassing chemistry we don't understand. And yes, some are quietly discussing the possibility of intentional activation of dormant systems. That last possibility is what has people most unsettled. If 3I Atlas contains technology, and that technology was dormant or in low power mode, and something triggered activation, you'd expect exactly what we're observing. Sudden increase in activity, changes in emission signatures, thermal hotspots from power generation, rotational changes from attitude control systems, even effects on nearby debris if they're communicating or sharing power somehow. It all fits the artificial hypothesis disturbingly well. But let's examine natural explanations rigorously, because that's what science requires. First hypothesis, delayed subsurface heating. Solar radiation penetrated insulating outer layers during perihelion passage and finally reached volatile-rich subsurface materials, triggering sudden sublimation and surface disruption. This could explain brightness increase and new spectroscopic features if fresh material is exposed. Problem with this hypothesis, the timing. Perihelion was weeks ago. Heat conduction through rock and ice is slow but calculable. Models show peak subsurface temperatures should have occurred days ago, not now. Also, this doesn't explain rotational change or the coordinated timing of multiple effects. Natural heating would produce gradual changes, not sudden coordinated transformation. Second hypothesis, impact by small undetected object. A house-sized rock or ice ball struck 3I Atlas, excavating fresh material, imparting angular momentum, changing rotation, and producing debris and outgassing. Impacts definitely cause sudden changes. Problem: we should have detected the impact directly. Multiple telescopes were observing. High energy impacts produce flashes, debris clouds, shock waves. We saw none of that. The changes occurred, but without the violent signatures of hypervelocity impact. Also, the probability of random impact during our observation window is very low. Not impossible, but unlikely. Third hypothesis, structural failure. Internal stresses from solar heating and rotation cause catastrophic collapse of weakened structures, exposing fresh materials and redistributing mass enough to change rotation. Comet nuclei do fragment spontaneously sometimes. Problem: fragmentation typically reduces rotation period as the remnant becomes more compact. 3I Atlas's rotation slowed, suggesting mass moved outward from rotation axis. That's opposite of what fragmentation usually produces. Also, no major fragments were observed separating, which we'd expect from structural failure. Fourth hypothesis, exotic ice chemistry. Maybe 3I Atlas contains volatiles we don't typically encounter, ammonia ices, methane clathrates, exotic organic compounds. These might sublimate at unexpected rates or produce unusual spectroscopic signatures. Maybe what we're seeing is chemistry beyond our normal experience with comets. Problem: while exotic chemistry might explain some observations, it doesn't explain the coordinated timing or the specific changes we're seeing. And we'd need very specific, very unusual composition distributed very specifically to produce all observed effects simultaneously. That's not impossible, but requires many special conditions. Fifth hypothesis, electrical discharge. 3I Atlas built up static charge from solar-wind interaction, then suddenly discharged, producing observed effects through electromagnetic interactions with surface materials. Problem: the energy required for effects we're seeing exceeds reasonable estimates of electrostatic charge accumulation. Also, discharge should produce specific radio emissions we didn't detect. The hypothesis doesn't account for rotational change or sustained thermal emission. Each natural explanation can account for some observations but struggles with others. The most honest assessment is that we don't have a natural explanation that comfortably fits all the data. That doesn't automatically mean artificial cause, but it does mean we're seeing something outside normal experience. The artificial hypothesis is straightforward. 3I Atlas contains technology that was activated. Why now? Possibly timer-based, programmed to activate at specific time after perihelion, possibly signal triggered, responding to transmission we made or internal communication, possibly proximity triggered, detecting Earth or Mars at specific distance, possibly damage triggered, the perihelion explosion damaged something and backup systems activated. Any of those would produce what we're observing. Sudden power generation creates thermal hotspots. Propulsion or attitude control systems change rotation. Transmitters or sensors produce unexpected emission signatures. Even effects on debris make sense if there's communication or coordination between separated components. It's elegant hypothesis that explains everything with single assumption. Artificial technology. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We have anomalous observations, but are they extraordinary enough? Reasonable scientists disagree. Some say yes, the coordination and rapidity of changes can't be natural. Others say we lack sufficient understanding of exotic astrophysical processes to rule out natural explanations definitively. Both positions are defensible. What's not defensible is ignoring this. Whatever the explanation, 3I Atlas just demonstrated behavior we need to understand. If it's natural, we're missing fundamental physics or chemistry. If it's artificial, we're witnessing active extraterrestrial technology. Either answer is scientifically revolutionary. The Chinese mission is now 60 days from intercept. That's the deadline for answers. When their spacecraft reaches 3I Atlas with close-range instruments, we'll get definitive data. High-resolution imaging will show surface structures clearly. Spectroscopy will determine exact composition. Magnetic field measurements will detect active electrical systems if present. Particle detectors will characterize emissions. Radar will map internal structure. That data will resolve this. 60 days. That's how long we wait for confirmation one way or another. But we're not waiting passively. Observations are continuous. Every major telescope with capability is tracking. 3-Eye Atlas. We're watching for additional changes. We're monitoring for transmissions. We're analyzing every pixel of every image. If anything else changes, we'll detect it immediately. Some researchers are proposing active experiments. Send radio transmissions toward 3-Eye Atlas and watch for response. Illuminate it with powerful radar and analyze returns. Some argue this is reasonable science. If it's artificial, maybe it will respond, confirming the hypothesis. Others argue it's reckless. We don't know what we're dealing with, and active probing might trigger undesirable responses. The debate is intense. My position? I think passive observation is appropriate until we have better understanding. We're gathering enormous amounts of data with current observations. Let's analyze what we have before actively poking something we don't understand. If it's natural phenomenon, active experiments won't reveal much more than passive observation. If it's technology, prudence suggests caution about triggering additional responses until we know more about capabilities and intentions. The sudden change has also affected public perception. This isn't obscure astronomical data anymore. The dramatic transformation, the lack of explanation from NASA, the acknowledgement that something unprecedented is occurring. It's mainstream news. People are paying attention. They're asking questions. They want answers. The pressure on scientific institutions to provide clarity is intense. That pressure creates difficult dynamics. Scientists want to be accurate, which requires acknowledging uncertainty. Public and media want definitive answers, which often aren't available yet. The gap between scientific uncertainty and public desire for clarity leads to frustration on both sides. Add the possibility that we might be observing alien technology, and emotions run high. Managing expectations while maintaining scientific rigor is challenging. Dr. Kaku's public statements have been carefully balanced. He acknowledges the observations are highly unusual. He notes that natural explanations face challenges. He states that artificial origin is a viable hypothesis worth serious consideration. But he also emphasizes that confirmation requires closer examination and that jumping to conclusions prematurely is unscientific. He's walking tightrope between scientific honesty and avoiding excessive speculation. His private assessments are somewhat more direct. In conversations with colleagues, he's expressed high confidence, above 80%, that 3-Eye Atlas contains artificial components. He bases this on accumulated evidence: the improbable trajectory, the perihelion acceleration, the explosion characteristics, the geometric features, the spectroscopic anomalies, the radio signal, and now this sudden transformation. Each piece individually might be explainable naturally, but the combination increasingly suggests design rather than chance. But he also acknowledges he could be wrong. History shows that unusual observations sometimes reveal new natural phenomena rather than artificial origin. Pulsars were briefly thought to be alien beacons before being identified as rotating neutron stars. Fast radio bursts seemed artificial until natural mechanisms were proposed. Scientific humility requires admitting that what seems inexplicable might just be poorly understood nature. The current working model among researchers taking artificial hypothesis seriously goes something like this. 3-Eye Atlas is a reconnaissance probe, possibly very old, sent from another star system to survey our solar system. It entered on optimized trajectory to observe inner planets during close solar approach. The perihelion explosion was either intentional data transmission and component ejection, or catastrophic malfunction from solar heating exceeding design limits. After perihelion, the probe continued operating in degraded state. The recent sudden change represents either successful repair of damaged systems, activation of backup systems after primary systems failed, execution of programmed mission phase, or response to external stimulus we don't fully understand. The changes we're observing are side effects of whatever technical operations just occurred. This model is speculative but coherent. It explains observations without requiring physics violations or extraordinary coincidences. It makes testable predictions. Close examination should reveal manufactured structures, artificial materials, functional systems. If wrong, closer data will show purely natural composition and processes. That's how science works. Propose hypotheses, make predictions, test with observations. The alternative natural model requires multiple independent, unusual processes, all happening simultaneously by coincidence, exotic outgassing chemistry, producing unusual spectroscopic signatures, subsurface ice finally reaching critical conditions weeks after perihelion, impact or structural change altering rotation, completely separate process creating thermal hotspots. Possible? Yes. Probable? Less clear. The requirement for multiple coincidental processes is scientifically unsatisfying, even if not impossible. Let's discuss what the sudden change tells us about timescales if this is technology. The rapidity, everything transforming within hours, indicates responsive systems with quick activation capability. That suggests active power generation rather than passive systems. It suggests monitoring or triggering mechanisms that detected some condition and executed response. It suggests engineering designed for reliability and rapid deployment. Compare that to human spacecraft. Our most sophisticated autonomous systems require careful commanding and hours to days for major operational changes. Hibernation to active mode transitions are slow, deliberate, carefully managed. If 3I Atlas went from dormant to active state in hours, that indicates engineering philosophy prioritizing responsiveness over energy conservation or caution. That tells us something about the designer's priorities. Or the change wasn't dormant to active, but rather normal to emergency mode. Maybe 3I Atlas was operating normally, encountered problem, and switched to backup systems. The sudden change represents failover to redundant systems with different operational characteristics. That interpretation also implies sophisticated engineering, robust fault tolerance, automatic recovery, redundant systems. Again, it tells us about design philosophy. The effect on debris fragments is particularly intriguing. If separated fragments change trajectory around the same time as main object transformation, that implies communication or field effects spanning large distances. The debris field spans millions of kilometers now. For changes to correlate across that distance requires either prearranged timing or faster than light communication or some physical field effect we don't understand. Each possibility is significant. If it's prearranged timing, that indicates sophisticated mission planning with synchronized operations across distributed components. If it's communication, we should be able to detect those signals if we look at right frequencies with right sensitivity. If it's field effect, that would be new physics, unknown forces acting across megameter scales. Any option is revolutionary. Some researchers are tracking debris fragments more carefully now, looking for patterns in trajectory changes. If all fragments adjusted in coordinated way, that's strong evidence for artificial control. If changes were random or showed no correlation, That suggests natural processes like outgassing affecting each fragment independently. Preliminary analysis shows more correlation than expected by chance, but sample size is small and uncertainties are large. More data needed. The 60-day countdown to Chinese spacecraft arrival is focusing everyone's attention. That mission will provide definitive answers to questions we're debating now. Close-range imaging will show whether surface structures are natural or manufactured. Spectroscopy will determine if materials are natural or synthetic. Magnetic and electrical measurements will detect active systems if present. We'll know, but 60 days is a long time. Anything could happen. 3I Atlas might change again. It might transmit again. It might do something completely unexpected. Or it might return to stable state and remain quiet until intercept. We don't know. We're watching constantly, waiting to see what happens next. The public interest is unprecedented for astronomy. Usually our work is specialized, technical, interesting to enthusiasts, but not mainstream. 3I Atlas has changed that. Everyone's paying attention because everyone understands the stakes. If this is first confirmed extraterrestrial technology, it's the most important discovery in human history. If it's natural but unexplained, it's still revolutionary for astrophysics. Either way, we're witnessing something extraordinary. The pressure on NASA and other space agencies is immense. They're expected to provide answers they don't have yet. They're managing geopolitical sensitivities, data sharing across borders when some nations want competitive advantage. They're handling public relations, keeping people informed without causing panic or spreading misinformation. They're making strategic decisions about response, how much to engage versus just observe. None of this is easy. My assessment after reviewing all available evidence. 3I Atlas just underwent rapid, coordinated transformation affecting brightness, rotation, spectrum, thermal emission, and possibly nearby debris. Natural explanations exist, but require multiple independent processes occurring coincidentally. Artificial explanation, activation of technological systems, explains all observations with single hypothesis. Probability of artificial origin, approximately 70 to 75% based on current data. That assessment will be refined as more data arrives. If 3I Atlas remains stable now, probability might decrease, suggesting the change was an isolated event rather than ongoing operations. If additional changes occur, probability increases, suggesting active systems responding to conditions. If patterns emerge in debris behavior, that shifts assessment significantly. Science updates beliefs based on evidence. The shock astronomers are experiencing is genuine. We train for systematic observation and logical analysis. We're prepared for unexpected discoveries. But 3I Atlas is challenging our frameworks faster than we can adapt them. Each new observation seems to require revising what we thought we understood. That's simultaneously exciting and unsettling. We're in territory where textbooks don't help because what we're observing isn't in textbooks yet. NASA can't explain the sudden change because honest answer is we don't fully understand what we're looking at. That's not failure, that's appropriate scientific humility when facing genuinely unprecedented observations. The alternative would be premature certainty, which would be worse. Better to acknowledge uncertainty and keep investigating than to prematurely commit to explanation that might be wrong. 3I Atlas shocked astronomers because it transformed rapidly in ways we didn't predict and don't fully understand. The change violates expectations about how objects behave in space. Natural explanations are possible but strained. Artificial explanations are controversial but coherent, and we'll have definitive answers in 60 days when spacecraft instruments examine it up close. Until then, we watch, we measure, we analyze, we debate, and we prepare for the possibility that everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe is about to change. Because 3i Atlas just demonstrated behavior that increasingly looks like it's not entirely natural. And that would change everything. This is the most exciting and most important time in astronomy since Galileo first pointed telescope at sky. We might be observing first confirmed extraterrestrial technology operating in our solar system, or we might be discovering exotic natural processes that revolutionize astrophysics. Either way, 3i Atlas just shocked us. And the shocks probably aren't over yet.